Yeah, lamp.
And that should be what decides it in November. Actions, not words. I'm Bill O'Reilly. I approve the message by writing it. You can reach me, Bill at BillO'Reilly.com. Bill at BillO'Reilly.com. Name and town if you would.
Lambo is on now. I'm gonna put a link in the chat. Click on the link. Share. Copy. Yeah, please click on link. Lambo is on. Switch time. Because I need to build the Lambo account. I need to build the Lambo account. Okay. Dave E, New York City Scrapper, what's up? Let me see how to do it somehow. Yeah, I'm preparing to switch. Switching to Lambo. Phone here. Yep. Still got hot anyway. Need to cool the phone. Yeah.
A new study finds women are less likely to
Yeah.
be treated by another woman. UCLA researchers studied data from the Medicare claims of more than 450,000 female patients and more than 8% when treated by a man. Among males, the mortality rate was 10.15% when treated by females, compared with 10.23% for males. Doesn't sound like much, but the researchers call it a clinically significant difference. That's correspondent Vicki Barker. In Britain, controversial legislation has just passed designed to curb illegal immigration from small inflatable boats crossing the English Channel.
After months of parliamentary squabbling and maneuvering, it's been passed. The legislation designed to enforce... I would also like to put on record my during this part. I beg to miss. British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak pledges the deportation flights will begin in July.
George Mallory vanished while climbing Mount Everest. If Mallory ever reached the summit before perishing in 1990. Well, Kansas Zoo is in mourning after their beloved ostrich passed away. Karen was just 5 years old, known for playing in water and dancing when prompted by employees at the Topeka, Kansas Zoo. She may have been playing when zookeepers said she reached outside her exhibit fence and grabbed an employee's keys, promptly swallowing them. They got non-surgically. The zoo says it had no choice but to euthanize Karen the ostrich, who the zoo says died in staff hands. She was kept in ABC News. The 10-10 Wins Small Business Challenge is back, and that means you could win 10 grand for your small business. Get all the info at 1010wins.com/challenge.
All news, all the time. This is 1010 Wins at 92.3 FM. You give us 22 minutes, we'll give you the world.
Good afternoon. It's 60 degrees. We've got sunny skies in Manhattan at 12:20. I'm Linda Lopez, and here's what's happening. More than 150 people were arrested in pro-Palestinian protests on the campus of NYU last night and at Columbia University. Students now have the option of going hybrid for the rest of the semester due to the protests on their campus. Police are asking for help finding the person responsible after a 24-year-old has been street in Jackson Heights early this morning. A Russian court has denied the appeal of Wall Street Journal reporter Evan Gershkovich. He'll remain in jail until at least June 30th. And Rihanna's song, Diamond, has now lived up to its title and is officially a Diamond certified record. 10-10 Winds AccuWeather. We'll have plenty of sunshine for the rest of today. It will become breezy, a little cool, but it'll be a high of 64 degrees today in the city. Winds News Time, 12:21. Let's get our check of traffic and transit number 1. Here's Gloria Papa. And let's start in Manhattan Road. We have that slow traffic on the FDR Drive. If you're wondering why, well, there's roadwork, of course. Both directions, 96 Street and North Bay Bridge. There's roadwork in the left lane, which is pulled until 2 o'clock. Now, here's what you need to know about the bridges in the tunnel. The bridge is 5 to 10 minutes, and about a 10-minute wait on the outbound side. 5 to 10 in both directions if you're taking the Legion into Holland. Heading over to Lower East River crossings, the Brooklyn Mountain Williamsburg Bridge, expected our Clay Bridge is slow into Manhattan, partially because of that city section. Only up here, right in person. Both directions of Belt Parkway between Rockland and Rockland Avenue. There's roving pothole repairs, alternating lane closures. That's going to be there until 2. And eastbound Belt jams up into the Van Wyck, again into the Southern State with roadwork in the right lane. Here's what we see on Long Island 63. No problems on the LAB, Northern State, or Southern State Parkway. This report is sponsored by Optimum Business. I'm Gloria Salfar. Next report is at 12:31. 10-10 Winds, 92.3 FM.
Get business fiber internet with speeds up to 8 gig and 99.9% network reliability. Plus, get up to a $600 gift. Call 855-2-OPTIMUM or visit optimum.com/business today.
Columbia University students can now choose to go hybrid for the rest of the semester after some students expressed safety concerns amid the protests at the university's campus. Our Glenn Chuck is at Columbia.
With ramped up private security and the NYPD here, media access to inside Columbia is still very limited. We reached out to Jonathan Ben Menachem. He is a PhD candidate who's been inside taking part in the protest. We asked him if he thought those who are there by the hundreds are going to be sticking around for a while, maybe even through graduation.
On a factual basis, I can't speculate about what's going to happen or not happen. Once can say that the university has shifted classes to virtual this week or hybrid. There's a potential the university may decide not to hold it, but
Columbia has ramped up their private security inside, NYPD outside, just in case they are needed. Again, that real question is how long will Columbia allow those students on the quad before they try to break it up? Glenn Shaw, 1010 wins, 92.3 FM.
Mayor Adams is holding his weekly press briefing at City Hall right now. He was just asked about the ongoing protest and said he believes this is more than just college students.
We can't have outside agitators come in and be destructive to our city. Someone wanted something to happen at that protest at NYU that police officers didn't respond to.
More than 150 people were arrested at NYU last night. Another demonstration is supposed to be held next hour at Washington Square Park. Police are looking for answers in the death of a 24-year-old last week who was found in the Bronx with gunshot wounds.
Big Bucks parents, and parents who themselves were transformed by 1968. When students took over Hamilton Hall right there on the campus of Columbia University, many of them, if they were white, had joined Students for a Democratic Society led by Mark Rudd, and they took the hall, and then blacks in the community that they were trying to help because they said that the gymnasium that Columbia University wanted to build down the hill from Columbia University in Morningside Heights should be used to help the black residents there and not the elite Columbia students, graduates, faculty, or anyone else associated with the university. So when the SDS took over the building, and see, that's what's going to happen on campus up next. The blacks who were in with them said, hey, you got to find your own building. We don't mix with white people. Go take over your own building. And they did. And it was chaos for many days. And it was around the anti-war movement, the movement towards leftist, radical politics. So we've come full circle since 1968. And the cops, they were told, come on the campus, stay off the campus, come on the campus, stay off the campus. They were like Duncan yo-yos, just like they are right now. Because Eric Adams, swagger man, just doesn't have a plan. And so we saw yesterday when they closed the encampments on the NYU campus, they've since put up plywood. Probably bought every piece of plywood at the nearby Home Depot that illegal aliens were running their hustle in the parking lots of. And put it up so as to stop the encampments, but they're not going to stop the encampments. They're not. It's a temporary measure. But more importantly, once they had made arrests last night, the NYPD, you saw the demonstrators, where did they go last night in the wee hours of the morning with their torches in their hand, but to one police plaza. And that reminded me what had happened in the summer of George Floyd. Many of you probably, it was a nightmare, as it was for me and so many others. When these radicals, these social misfits, descended upon City Hall and declared Occupy City Hall because they weren't going to leave until the City Council and Comrade Bill de Blasio, the part-time mayor, the dope from Park Slope, had removed $1 billion from the police budget. You remember that, right? It was June of 2022. I mean, it was a disgraziata, shanda. First, there was 100 tents outside, and the police were told to stand back. Their police commissioner at that time was Dermot Shea, the lapdog for Bill de Blasio. He was up in the Eagle's Nest at one police plaza. He never came down in the streets. He was afraid of his own shadow. And the city council members didn't even come to city council because, oh, we might get COVID. So you got all these radicals outside said, we ain't leaving until you defund the police by $1 billion. You remember that summer of 2020? I know. That's when I was battling Black Lives Matter and Antifa in the streets with the Guardian Angels, and Comrade Bill de Blasio had retreated and told the cops to stand back. If you went down to Occupy City Hall at that time, they had desecrated all the buildings, all the statues, no arrest. The only time that Comrade Bill de Blasio, part-time mayor, dope from Park Slope, seemed to get upset is when they vandalized the plaque that was put on the municipal building, 1 Center Street, in honor of his hero, and Eric Adams' hero, David Dinkins. Oh my God, they desecrated that flag. Oh, right away, he ordered the Department of Transportation to clean that flag, and he chastised the demonstrators who said, ha ha ha, oofa, we control City Hall, so we ain't leaving until you defund the police by $1 billion. So what did Bill de Blasio do in consort with the police commissioner, Dermot Shea, who is a eunuch, a gelding, a capon, wherever he is today? He should be, I mean, he's a pariah. He agreed. He came out and he said, I agree with the mayor. We should defund the police by $1 billion. We can do our job without that $1 billion. And Corey Johnson, at that time, city council president, remember, speaker, he thought, oh, I'm going to be the next mayor. Not. They were dancing the horror. All the city council people, remember, they were high-fiving one another. It's great, defund the police. They've never put a penny back since. Never put a penny back since. And they had statues that had mannequins of pigs with police garb on, with police hats, and they had them hanging from the statues. And the police wanted to take those mannequins down. And Dermot Shea, the lapdog for Bill de Blasio, said, no, the mayor wants them up. It's freedom of speech, freedom of expression. And they were urinating and defecating. The place was an absolute mess. Like Zuccotti Park had been for Occupy Wall Street. A lot of crazy people, emotionally disturbed, homeless people. There were women claiming that they were being sexually assaulted. It was an absolute disaster. And now they're planning to do it again. Watch, you think last night when they marched on the campus of NYU outside of one police plaza with their torches and their schmatters on their head?
You Alicia
No, he
Keys.
wasn't at the same root mass. Didn't want anybody to see him. Now all of a sudden it's the keffiyeh around their face and eyes. So you can't even use facial recognition technology to figure out who they are. And most of them are white boys and white girls. They're naive and Arabic. They don't even have olive skin. They're not from the Middle East. They're not from the Persian Gulf, but they're playing the part because the remnants of Black Lives Matter and Antifa has resurfaced in the form of this Gaza solidarity movement. And oh boy, never got the $1 billion back. Never got the $1 billion back. But it is interesting, the same routine applies today as applied years ago in 1968, when the cops would come on to Columbia campus, when these students had taken over Hamilton Hall and some of the other halls, and the cops would grab them out and give them a desk appearance ticket at DAT or C summons. And then they go back to their dorm or wherever to get stoned. You knew that was happening, Justin Elliott. That's back in 68. Peace, love, and happiness, puff, puff, pass, drop some acid. And then all of a sudden they could say, hey, and we are pro-North Vietnam, pro-Ho Chi Minh, you know, pro-Viet Cong against the United States. And most importantly, anti-America, anti-capitalism. You remember? And then remember what you would do, Justin Elliott, although you weren't around at that time. You would hook up, you would get laid. That was the whole idea at the end of the night, that you would find somebody that was willing enough to partner up with you so you could score, you could get laid. Now, mostly back then it was heterosexual, some gay men, some lesbian women, but that was limited. Now the equation has completely changed. Up next, I'm going to give you an idea of what's happening in the quad at Columbia University right now, where the police have been told they can't go, and Eric Adams, even though there is complaint after complaint that Jews are being harassed in the quad, harassed in their dorm rooms, professors who are Jewish being harassed as they walk around on the campus. Eric Adams, swagger man with no plan, who had been missing in action in Miami Beach, raising the roof for 2...
Yeah. Let's go. 45th Street.
Yeah. That was a cool little coffee shop. Like the girls making coffee, playing with dogs, and like playing Police reported ahead.
ABC Radio app is showcasing live radio. Podcast 77 WABC. 77 WABC, D'Agostino and Associates, the injury firm's chime time is 12:33. I'm John D'Agostino from D'Agostino and Associates, the injury firm. 888-24-LAW-24. Call me for a free consultation. D'Agostino's Law Fight Back. This is Greg Kelly, and I want to address the subject of pain. Pain is not something you should accept or think you must live with. No, not at all. Dr. Hal Gladman, a nationally recognized specialist in integrative medicine, treats pain of all types and has had amazing results, especially with unsuccessful results with other medical treatments. Dr. Gladman has said pain is not what we were taught.
So I think she's done, but I asked her to send me better pictures, so they took them.
Dr. Hal Gladman in Manhattan. The phone number 844-282-8900. That's 844-282-8900.
It's in the door, like, I'll make sure
The web address,
teachers, and then the very first teaching that occurred on my birthday, March 26, 1965, at the most liberal and progressive of universities then and now, University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. And so the teachers joined in solidarity with the students in the anti-war movement, advocating the overthrow of capitalism, and they didn't go inside of the classrooms. They had their teach-ins outside. In fact, it was interesting because faculty was considered equal to students. And you know who two of the great graduates of those teach-ins were at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor? One was Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber, who was very left-wing, very progressive, who was opposed to any technological advancements, and wanted to live off of nature. Remember, he was out there in some shack in Montana when his brother up in Albany ratted him out to the FBI, and he ended up spending his time in Florence, Colorado, after killing 3 and injuring 23 with bombs. And then there was Ted Bundy. Yeah, Ted Bundy took psychology in those teach-ins outside of the quad there at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor, and he used psychology that he was taught there to end up taking advantage of 30 of his victims, killing probably more, decapitating them, having sex with the dead victims. I mean, a real freak. And then finally, on January 24, 1989, they put the juice in his caboose in Stark Prison, northern Florida, in the Rayford electric chair. And I was so proud because at 7 a.m., Justin Ellick, my Florida leader, Paul Martinelli, and the Florida Guardian Angels were outside cheering them on. Put the juice in his caboose, and actually he was sitting in a facsimile of an electric chair. Yeah, right on. Oh, that's right, no more death penalty. Well, what else? Proud you Michigan graduates. I know right away you're going to say, hey, but Brady went there. I get it. I get it. But let's talk about what is existing now in Columbia, because they've canceled classes. They say it's virtual, but I know what's going on. There are teachings. You have professors, assistant professors, adjunct professors who are conducting classes in which those students who hate Jews, who hate Israel, who love Hamas, love Hezbollah, and love the Ayatollahs in Tehran, at least some of them have pledged support to them, are probably having educational training because they're in the tents at night. They come out during the day, and it would make sense that they would have teach-ins like in 1968, what they were having at Columbia and what they were having at universities all over the country before the SDS evolved into the Weather Underground, and then they started bombing these colleges, like the University of Michigan, like the University of Wisconsin, and we can go on and on. But let's get back. Class number 1, Justin Ellick, you probably heard it from outside on 116th and Broadway. Political chanting. Very important that the students and the faculty, you know, harmonize, almost like a barbershop quartet, almost like a cappella, like doo-wop. You know, you gotta start harmonizing. Very important to get those chants down. So the most important chant of all is from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. Pretty good, right? Pretty good. Oh boy, this thing ain't even earned a few stars. Israel, you can't hide. You're committing genocide. What do you think? What do you think, Justin? I'm in the flow, right? I'm in the flow. Try it again. Hamas, you make us proud. Take another IDF soldier out. Okay, yeah, I'm getting good. Hamas, we love you. We support your rockets, too. Frightening. I'm getting really good here. Really good. Frightening. Red, black, and green and white. We support Hamas's fight. Yeah. Oh, man. I'm telling you, this is good solidarity. It is right to rebel, Hamas. I'm not messed up. Let me amend that. Hold up. Don't throw me out of the class yet to be in the teaching. It is right to rebel, Hamas. Give them hell. Really doing good. Really doing .44 Magnum. I get to blow away an IDF soldier. I'll probably get extra points for that. And this is the Coupe de Grace, right? Or Coupe de Grace, something like that. We say justice, you say how. Burn Tel Aviv to the ground. Hey, Mom and Dad, you're spending $100,000 on me. I'm learning my political chants. Are you proud of me? And they're probably saying, you know, because it's all being FaceTime back to Mom and Dad. Yeah, we were that way outside SDS, Mark Rudd, 1968, Hamilton Hall, when we took over Columbia. You make us proud, son. You make us proud, daughter. Doing fairly well. What do we say to those 50 young people like ourselves who committed suicide since they were at the Nova Festival on October 7th? They were killed by Hamas. They were pacifists. They were into peace, love, and happiness. They were liberals. They were progressive. They lived on kibbutzim. That's socialism. Socialism. Come on. Uh-oh, hit us all pointed. It's got to be Jews. All right. Well, sex education is up next. I know I'm going to do well. I can remember my first time of having sex education in the classroom of Bilderseed Junior High School in Canarsie when the sex education teacher, I forget her name, was putting a condom on a Chiquita banana. And she had problems doing that. You can imagine the problems we had, though. But this is advanced. This is advanced. I'm ready. LGBTQ+. Okay, that means lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer. That plus sign, Recognize the limitless sexual orientations and gender identities used by members of this growing community. And I believe that Q stands for questioning. Oh, I can't question my sexual identity. I have to be LGBTQ. Is that correct? Okay, all right, hold on a second. It's not going well, Justin. Next, non-binary. I'm not a man or a woman. I could be agender, bigender, genderqueer, gender fluid. How about if I just declare myself to be binary, straight? Oh, wait. How about if I declare myself to be a Jew who supports Israel? How about if I declare myself, I know.
Yeah, can you repeat that again? I didn't hear you. The name is Alicia Haro. Yes. Okay, thank you.
It's 40.
Yeah, this is the building. It's the 45.
What?
This is the building.
Oh, this is the wrong place.
It's 45th West 25th.
Oh, but why you put 45? I'll take you to the other place, no
Yeah,
problem.
West 25th.
Oh.
45th.
Yes. Okay, but you see, you
Yeah,
put
that
this.
was
I will change it.
It's like
Yeah, that
Can
was
you
not
change
mine.
on your place?
it's this one, like 45W
Correct.
25th Street.
Yeah, I know, but you put here, and I'll change.
Yes, but I've never used
Can
this
you
card
che-
for that.
can you
I have an
change it?
account, but it's through my
Let's see if I can change.
through my Bank of America.
Edit destination. Can you show me?
Yeah, okay, it's 45.
45 West 25. Okay.
Yes. Sorry.
No, I didn't even know until just now when I got a call from you guys.
Okay. Charge account.
Okay.
There's this problem with. Let me see.
Okay.
Can you do it on your? Can you do it on your end? So,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, yeah. Alicia, oh, she needs to do it.
Yeah.
Change
How do I do that?
change destination. Go to setting, click more, and then click edit destination.
Settings.
Edit destination.
I don't see it. I'm in settings.
Okay, let's see if we can. One second. Okay, let me see. Edit right. Edit drop off. See, you put 45 by mistake, but he said it's 45 West 25.
Oh, it's 25th Street?
45 West 25.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of close. I'm like, oh, we're already here. We could have walked.
45 West 25. Confirm. Okay, we go to the
Drop-off location changed.
Sorry about that.
No,
Rerouting.
no problem.
I'm glad we left early.
I'm wondering when we turn on the straight north.
I'm glad you noticed. I was the one to get off. Yeah, they just called me that. Someone's been coming to my car.
Oh, because you're out here?
Yeah, I got it from Audible.
Red light camera reported ahead.
Faith is how I keep my practice open. I know each of my clients by name and have a pulse on each case. Take action. Call me 718-333-0812. I am Mikhail Yadro, personal injury attorney. I deliver honesty while evaluating your personal injury case, which turns into trust, and I deliver clear communication, which equals high rewards. Take action. Call me 718-333-0812.
Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Maybe we can take Tuesday, then not Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Kind of to break it up. Well, that's 3 days. Yeah, not all in a row, because he goes 3 days in a row, and then he's off 5 days in a row. Yeah, 4 days. It might be too much. Yeah. The experts might have double income at home. Yeah. A lot of us don't have that luxury. Giovanni remember to take out the trash cans last night? He did? Oh, okay, great. Thank you so much. Awesome, and the guy should show up today. They're not? What time is it? Oh no, well today he was going to go buy the stuff. Today's Tuesday, right? Yeah, he said that we're gonna get everything done today. Yeah, if he doesn't show up today, then I'll call him tonight. Did you find the lamps you wanted?
So maybe here is the correct place. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Have a good day.
Thank
You have stuff
Okay,
in
I
the
gotta
back.
go.
Don't
Okay,
forget.
thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank
As
you.
much as the bicycle.
Sorry about that.
No problem, no problem. Thank you, choosing a 5-star. Tip the driver. The wife and landlord take
Yeah,
all my
please
money.
don't give me a
Thank-
bad rating
No,
for
no,
making
of
a
course.
mistake.
No, no. I will give you a million stars. Thank you. Yep. Yeah. Pet page next.
Mateo says we also had another
Long Island is
attack
next.
this week. And a fatal accident early this morning in Jackson Heights. It happened just before 5:30 a.m. Police say a 30-year-old man was crossing the street at the intersection of 70th and Roosevelt Avenue when he was struck. He was taken to an area hospital and pronounced dead on arrival. The driver remained at the scene, and the investigation is ongoing. Wednesday time, 1:05.
Yeah, that
we
was
finally have some
beautiful
answers
vintage
about the
car,
dangerous drums of chemicals that were found on Long Island. First, 6 drums of cancer-causing chemicals were found buried in the ball field at Bethpage Community Park. Then underneath those drums, Town of Oyster Bay Supervisor Joseph Saladino says 10 more were found. What is inside those drums, we will know later today.
We have made it clear to Grumman once everything is excavated, they're responsible for returning this site to its state-of-the-art
Delivery.
field for our residents.
Delivery.
This will take years.
The site was once part of Grumman Aerospace. The soil was also tested. The soil to be removed and replaced with clean, fresh soil. Sophia Hall, 1010 Winds, a 93.3 FM in
Fresh
Suffolk County,
pineapple.
Long Island. Well, the next time you need groceries,
Fresh
Amazon is
pineapple.
saying, why not try us? The e-commerce giant launched a new grocery delivery subscription service. Prime members get unlimited delivery for $9.99 a month on orders over $35. The service covers Whole Foods, Amazon Fresh, and other local retailers like Rite Aid. It's launching in over 3,000 towns and cities across the country. Over $95 billion in aid for Ukraine, Taiwan, and Israel could hit the president's desk soon.
The Senate will pass the measure. It's just a question of whether that happens today or opponents delay it until tomorrow. Senate Leader Chuck Schumer.
Let us not keep our friends around the world waiting for a moment longer.
He was joined in that call by his GOP counterpart, Mitch McConnell, who blasted isolationist members of his own Republican Party for believing in what he called a fantasy.
Our only help is all the way.
Foreign aid bill includes more than $60 billion to Ukraine, with some Republicans staunchly opposed. Stephen Portnoy, ABC News, Washington.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says Russia is trying to intimidate the country's second-largest city after a Russian missile struck a television tower in Kharkiv. Zelensky says this attack is meant to strike fear in the hearts of Ukrainians and limit Kharkiv's access to information. Kharkiv has been under constant attack in the past few weeks. Ukrainian and Russian forces have been locked in battle there for over 2 years. A tragedy to tell you about in the English Channel. French media report at least 5 people have died trying to cross the English Channel in an overcrowded boat. Here, just hours after British lawmakers approved a controversial bill that would see migrants who enter the UK illegally deported to Rwanda. Supporters of the measure say it will prevent future such tragedies occurring, so the judge only sees the law will fail to kill those desperate enough to risk death in the freezing waters. That's correspondent Vicki Barker. A woman has been charged in this weekend's deadly crash at a Michigan swan boat club. Prosecutors say 66-year-old Marcella drunkenly crashed into the club while it was hosting a birthday party. The crash killed an 8-year-old and a 4-year-old and injured their mother, among others. Marcella Chidester is facing 8 counts, including second-degree murder. She's due in court later today. Wings News Time, 1:09.
Minister dog show on TV, and a simple question pops into your head, and it basically led you on this journey. And on the very first page of your book's prologue, you posed this question. So what exactly was that question, and how did that question guide this book?
The question was, are those dogs happy? Because it's, obviously, if you've seen a dog show, a show dog lives a much different life than your average pet, or, the bud who lives down the street or whatever. They are groomed and prepped for hours and hours every day. They are trained for hours a day. They have special diets. They travel from town to town like this big traveling caravan of dog shows and dog show people. They just live a very strange life compared to a regular dog. And as I started watching that show, I wondered if those dogs were happy. And then that kind of led me to the question,
wake up.
Is a regular dog happy? Obviously they seem happy. When you come home and the dog runs up and wants to lick your face or whatever, they're showing signs of affection.
Listeners, we're sure that there are many people here that can speak to that human-dog relation.
Understanding is, how we think about that. And then I also started going to dogs, gave me a little more time to do some research and thinking.
We've got Adrian in the East Village on the phone. Hey, Adrian, welcome to the show.
They know that when humans and dogs look at each other, they pass oxytocin, the hormone that a mother and baby pass to each other. And I think we underestimate the animal world. They have lots of feelings, and I think they're capable of love as well. And also, I just wanted to say that this Saturday, April 23rd, we're having the third all. It's just basically a fun day experience.
We've also got Nat in Staten. Nat, welcome to the show.
Life form. We've found out now that humans connect with all sorts of, whatever. And I think that dogs specifically, of course, are very close evolutionarily, but none of us want to be alone. Do for each other. If you smile at somebody, you'll climb a building for somebody. You'll give them your shirt. You'll jump into the river and swim across it. Just to be with another person, just to be with another living thing.
Yeah, Nat, that's such a beautiful sentiment, and thank you so much for sharing that. And your point about all different types of animals making connections with humans, I think is important. Tommy, I saw you nodding your head while Nat was speaking. What about that resonated for you?
Well, dogs and humans are the longest running sort of, if you want to put it this way, human-animal relationship. So, as far as scientists know, dogs were the first animals that humans ever tamed. And not only that, humans basically created dogs. So every dog
in 800 feet, use the left 2 lanes to stay to the left to Queens Midtown Tunnel, left lane.
Downtown.
And those wolves used to hang around back when humans were a little closer. And at some point,
Yep.
Stay to the left to Queens Midtown Tunnel, left lane.
Humans reached out and touched it, basically. And from those, ever since then, as far back as 30,000 years ago, humans and dogs have had this relationship. I think we learned how to deal with other animals because we dealt with dogs first. They were our first close animal relationship, and everything since then has sort of stemmed from those first dogs and how we did. Adrian, the caller before, was exactly right about how dogs and humans, when they look at each other, there's a chemical, an oxytocin, in their brain, sort of a pleasure chemical that goes back and forth. That doesn't happen with other animals.
Well, you know, I want to get I want to get into the point that you made. I didn't know a lot about dog shows before reading your book, but there is a lot to learn, and a lot of people might know about the Westminster Dog Show at length. And what I learned is that the second longest running annual event in sporting history is the Westminster Dog Show, at least for American history. And it's
Continue straight for 30 minutes to I-495 East HOV.
Which I found really interesting. Can you talk about that a little bit? What do you make of that?
Yep.
Striker is just a nickname, like Striker, the name itself. His real name is much longer. Do you remember, can you tell us a little bit about what Striker's full name is?
Yeah, if I'm remembering this right, it's Vanderbilt and Brentom's Lucky Strike. And that's actually a fairly short official name for a show dog. People go crazy with these names. Usually the first name of the dog is the place where it was bred. And then after that, people come up with all these crazy, seashells by the seashore sort of things. And if you look through a catalog at a dog show, you'll just see all these wild names that got to be so crazy that the AJC had to sort of crack down on the number of letters that you could use for a dog name, but that's their registered name. Dogs then also have a call name, which is just what you call them. In this particular dog's name is Striker. He's a Samoyed, which some people in the dog fancy call Semied, which is more of a proper name. He's a huge white, Siberian Husky dog. Looks kind of like a snowman, just pure white with fur that kind of blurs to silver at the edge. It's just an absolutely gorgeous dog and sort of zen-like in his stillness. I thought watching him and then watching other dogs that were more hyper and kind of bounced around a little bit, he just felt always sort of calm and centered all the time. And I think that calmness with the chaos of the dog show all around him, probably one of the things that made him a champion show dog.
And I understand that show dogs basically have one goal, and it's not about how pretty they look or even, how well they jump. Can you tell us the sole purpose of a dog show? What are judges actually looking for?
So these dog shows are called conformation shows. And the reason they're called that is that the ideal thing they're looking for, dogs technically are not competing against each other. They're competing against the breed standard of what the perfect dog of that breed is supposed to be. These are written standards done by the clubs for each breed. Sometimes they run to thousands and thousands of words, get into minute detail about dogs' eye color, how high they should be, the proportion of the shoulders to the back end, all these, very, very precise measurements and thoughts about how dogs should look and behave. And what a judge is supposed to be looking for is how closely the dog in front of them conforms to the standard for that breed. So they're not really looking at a bloodhound versus a poodle. They're looking at, is that bloodhound, how close is that to the perfect bloodhound? And the one that's the most perfect in that sense is supposed to be the winner.
What did you make of that when you heard that was the objective? It seems to go against the idea that maybe that's not the premise of your book, but the question that you posed at the beginning about this mutually beneficial relationship.
Well, I think it comes from how these things have evolved. So these breed standards, in many cases, used to have really practical applications because they wanted dogs that were able to do certain things. A dog that was bred a certain way to be a champion hunting dog or a sled dog or something like that. People discovered over time that the best dog might have a certain eye color. That wasn't really, the eye color wasn't important, but it was a marker for the best of that breed. Now it's much more about how the dogs look, because we really don't use dogs by and large as power tools anymore. They're more like our companions, our roommates. As I put in the book, they're all therapy dogs now. And so that breed standard in many ways is sort of a throwback to something that made a lot more sense in the older days and now is more cosmetic in nature.
Listeners, if you're just joining us, we're talking to Tommy Tomlinson about dogs and the Westminster Dog Show and the relationship between dogs and humans. His book, Dogland, which is about all of that, is out today. And I want to talk about the book again in terms of formatting. This is something I thought was really interesting about the book. You have these fun breakaway sections scattered throughout Dogland, and you call them pee breaks, and they're fun factoids about dogs. You have a section called Dog Haters Ranked, where you rank the worst fictional dog haters in media, and you ranked Cruella de Vil from 101 Dalmatians on number 1, which was no surprise to me, very good choice. What was fun for you about writing these sections?
Well, the reason I started to do it is, started to do the research that we talked about earlier and looked at all the dogs that we talk about and think about in our culture, it's just an overwhelming number. There are so many great dog stories out there. And so as I started trying to figure out, like, how in the world am I going to fit all this great stuff into my book, one thing I thought about was, well, let me just make some lists where I can just tell brief stories or brief mentions of some of the dogs that are either important or interesting in our culture. And so I got decided to do these little pee breaks between chapters where I talk about, as you say, dog haters or dogs in art or traveling dogs and all that sort of thing. And that was a way to sort of wedge in all these great things I learned about dogs along the way.
We just got a text from somebody that has a question for you. It reads, what are Tommy's thoughts on some of the recent international breed bans for either behavior or unsafe breeding, and how can we encourage and enforce safe breeding practices?
Yeah, there's a lot of that going on, especially overseas. In some countries now, they have banned the breeding of dogs like French bulldogs and other sort of what are sort of described as flat-faced dogs,
construction
like
on road
pugs
ahead.
and things like that. Those dogs are very popular. French bulldogs for the last couple of years have been the top breed in America. But they also, how they're bred, how they're raised, that sort of thing. And I think that is something that the U.S. is going to have to at least look at in the future, although I'm sure there will be very strong resistance from dog breeders and dog lovers because these dogs are really popular. We've bred them in a way to look more like us, right? They have the flat faces, they're kind of more human in nature. Everybody talks about how all pugs sort of look like Winston Churchill in a way. But because of that, we've caused some long-term damage to those dogs' bloodlines, and I hope that's something we take a look at in the future.
Well, you know, it makes me think of one of the more peculiar things that you write about in the dog show world, which is a breeding group called the Sperm Girls. Can you tell us more about what they are?
Yes, their company is called Infinity Canine. They're outside of Raleigh, North Carolina, and they go to dog shows across the country and collect semen from dogs and from the dogs that are owned by people who want to preserve that semen for potential breeding down the road. You know, this stuff is frozen. You know, a dog can theoretically father other dogs many years after it's dead because of this. People lined up in their tents every to do this work that they do is done manually. There's no machine to do it. As one of the women told me as I was interviewing her, she said, if you had told me that this is how I would end up making a living, I would have slapped you. You know, and so this is you know, this breeding for the future is something that happens all the time. Many people, including Barbara Streisand, for example, have actually cloned their former dogs, and they have cloned versions of their old dogs that are alive and well now.
You know, I'm hearing all of this, and it sounds so cultural to me, and we have this text that just came in talking about international standards, and you touched on this in the book, but I'm fascinated about applying the ideas of the book globally, because you take us to shows across the U.S. and the United Kingdom, but if you go to other parts of the world, dogs are not treated in the same way as maybe folks in the West do. So did you look into how dogs are perceived and treated in other cultures, and how did that impact your thesis?
I did. I mean, I don't dwell on it in the book that much, but certainly in other cultures, dogs are mainly street dogs. You know, there's a couple of really interesting studies and some interesting thinking about, you know, to get back to that question of, you know, how
Estimated
dogs
time in traffic, 8 minutes.
You know, street dogs have more dangers in their day-to-day life, certainly, and they probably don't live as long as the average pampered indoor dog, but they have agency in their lives that house dog doesn't. They can go wherever they want, they can mate however they want, they can eat whatever they want, and if you thought about it in human terms, and you got to pick one of those lives or the other, you might pick the street dog's life. And so there's some things that we should think about, and you know, we have domesticated dogs. And domestication we think of as a pretty good thing because we generally treat our dogs pretty well here. But they don't have the same choices that a stray dog or a street dog in another country might have, and that's something we're thinking about.
Yeah. The annual Westminster Kennel Dog Show is taking place right here in New York in a few weeks. You mentioned that. It's in Queens on May 11th through the 14th. Are you going?
I'm not going this year. I've been to several. I have book events and that sort of thing. I'll be on my book tour then. But I will definitely be watching. And now it's a little better for me because I know some of the people there and I have a little bit better sense of what's going on. So I hope I'll be able to watch with a little better eye.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for writing this book. We've been talking to journalist, podcast host, and author Tommy Tomlinson. The book is Dogland. It's a book about, people's love for dogs and the Westminster Dog Show, and it is out today. Tommy, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, man, it was my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Up next, celebrated young writer Layla Motley has followed up her best-selling debut novel, Nightcrawling, with a poetry collection. She joins us to discuss Woke Up, No Light, and to read some poems in her honor of National Poetry Month. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
On the next Fresh Air, the songwriter, singer, guitarist, and three-time Grammy winner known as St. Vincent. In addition to her own album, she co-wrote songs with Taylor Swift and Olivia Rodrigo, recorded an album of duets with David Byrne, and fronted Nirvana when they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. St. Vincent has a new album called All Born Screaming. Join us weekdays at 2 on WNYC or live stream it at WNYC.org.
WNYC is supported by Carnegie Hall, presenting Natalie Stutzman conducting the Philadelphia Orchestra, soloist Aaron Morley, Sarah Mingardo, Kenneth Tarver, and Harold Wilson, and chorus performing Mozart's Requiem, Tuesday, April 30th. Tickets at carnegiehall.org. Symphony Space presenting Wall-to-Wall Prince, a complimentary event presenting a roster of artists paying tribute to Prince, with music, dance, spoken word, and more. Saturday, May 4th from 3 to 11 p.m. Learn more at symphonyspace.org. Support for WNYC is provided in part by Trinity Church Wall Street, working for racial justice through ending the cycles of mass incarceration and mass homelessness. This is WNYC, 93.9 FM and AM 820. NPR News and the New York Conversation. I'm Kushan Avedar in for Allison Stewart. We're wrapping up today's show with a little poetry in honor of National Poetry Month.
In 2.9
Let's talk
miles,
about a debut
stay to
poetry
the left to
collection from
I-495 East
21-year-old New York
HOV.
Times best-selling author and former Youth Poet Laureate from Oakland, California, Layla Motley. Her new book is full of hymns, restitution, and desire. The poetry collection is a follow-up to her highly acclaimed third novel, Nightcrawling, which follows a young sex worker in Oakland who's embroiled in a police scandal. She started writing the novel a month before she turned 17, and later it became Oprah's book club pick and longlisted for the 2022 Booker Prize. That made her the youngest person ever nominated for the award, which is super cool. Layla's new poetry collection is titled Woke Up, No Light, and it's out now. And quick plug, tomorrow night at 7 p.m., Layla's going to be at Poetry Night along with the writer Tatiana Johnson Boria at Books Are Magic on Montague Street in Brooklyn. And right now, Layla is here with us to talk about her new collection and maybe share some poems if we're lucky. Layla, hi, welcome to all of it.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Would you start us off by reading the poem How to Love a Woman Sailing the Sky?
Yes. How to Love a Woman Sailing the Sky. The only thing that surprised me more than all the oceans soaked in salt was the day after all my chasing, all your running, you stopped, twirled around, and touched your fingertips to the crescent of my collarbone. I have been a woman sailing the sky. I have have been a girl clung tight to the branches. I have been a daughter splayed out on a boat of ice. And then I was yours. I was born to floating people who drank from the clouds that held them until there was nothing but blue and one spectacular drop. I searched for something solid so long I forgot my body itself was not made of mist or malice. You reached out your hand. I flinched until you showed me you were not reaching through me, but for me. And then I was yours.
So much about that poem, and maybe this whole collection feels like it echoes themes of change and of desire. Does that resonate with you, that characterization?
Absolutely. Yeah, I think this collection was a way for me to kind of capture my entire journey through childhood and into adulthood, and show kind of all of the change and turmoil that comes with growing up.
And were these poems that you had developed over that period, or are these more like retrospective that you're writing recently?
Both. There are a couple that were from when I was 15 or 16, and then there are a lot of them that are kind of over the past few years of my life as I've kind of reflected back and grown into this new version of myself, and kind of looking at how do we live in a world and grow into a world that is often feels like it's on the brink of destruction.
And so this one that we just heard, How to Love a Woman Sailing the Sky, do you remember when you started that, how old you were?
Yeah, that's one of the last poems that entered the collection, as I was thinking about like what does it mean to trust and to wholly enter love and life when you've come from a past of distrust.
And so, you know, when you come from a past of distrust is such a heavy term, and I think about how your writing must change over time. This one you wrote recently, there's some you said from when you were 15. Yeah. Can you see differences in your writing?
Yeah.
How would you describe it?
Absolutely. I mean, when you're a teenager, everything's heightened. So I think a lot of the poetry then was very highly emotional and intense, and tended to be like longer and more spoken word based. And then some of my poetry now, it tends to be a little bit slower and more contemplative.
How does slow and fast show up in the writing? Is that like the rhythm of how you would choose?
Yeah, absolutely. I write by hand mostly when I'm writing poetry, but I think that when I was younger, like it was a lot of scribbling, and now like I'll take my time with it. I feel like I have more time to really soak in and sink into the work, and think about it in its dualities.
Oh, interesting. Listeners, if you're just joining us, we're lucky to have Layla Motley here with us in studio. Her debut poetry collection, Woke Up No Light, is out right now. You know, I'm thinking about, before this book, you were a New York Times bestselling author. You served as the 2018 Oakland Youth Poet Laureate. What sparked your interest in poetry, and when did you decide, hey, you know, since I'm 15, I've got these poems, I want to put into a collection?
I've been writing poetry and fiction for as long as I can remember. I started writing poetry when I was 6, and then I started writing novels when I was 14, and so the two have kind of always coincided for me, but taken their own separate lanes, and I wanted to be able to do both at once for the first time in my life. I think that they have such influence on each other, on like my fiction kind of shows up in my poetry at times, and my poetry definitely shows up in the way that I write prose, and being able to like have them both exist at the same time, I think allows me more freedom in my work.
Oh, wonderful. You know, listeners, I just want to put out something. I made a mistake in the way that I pronounced Montague Street in Brooklyn, so I'm sorry about that. So just to make sure everyone is aware, for the quick plug, tomorrow night at 7 p.m., Layla's going to be at the Poetry Night with writer Tatiana Johnson-Boria at Books Are Magic on Montague Street. My bad, it's in Brooklyn. Be sure that you check it out. You know, I'm thinking about the similarities between this collection of poems and your most recent novel, Nightcrawler. You mentioned that your prose influences your poetry in both ways around. Can you dive into that a little bit? What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the tradition of a lot of Black women writers, I think language needs to kind of be able to move boundlessly, and in the way that I write fiction, I kind of infuse it with poetry, and thinking about how we rarely get to see Black women, Black girls' interior lives as the kind of poetic to live in tangibly and viscerally, and the ways that we like cope through language.
You know, it reminds me of this interview you did for the San Francisco Chronicle. You mentioned returning to poetry after publishing Nightcrawler, and you said that, quote, poetry itself is more insular, which I thought, can you talk to me more about insularity and maybe what does poetry offer you as a form of expression?
I mean, I think a lot of us grow up writing poetry as kind of a journalistic way of expressing ourselves and understanding ourselves, and I definitely did. I think that there's something about poetry that is like kinetic and it's vibrational and we feel it, and I think especially in an age where we have shorter attention spans in a TikTok world, like I think that a lot of the times we need to be able to like consume something and understand it and feel it emotionally in a short period of time, and poetry allows us to do that, and it doesn't reduce its complexity either.
You know, I think that you have another poem for us, My Greatest Grandmother's Will. Would you be able to share that one with us?
Yeah, this is an erasure poem. In the name of state, of body, memory, and knowing, now being one on the watery river of 300 Negroes called Nan, horses and cattle and life, I give my youngest boy one will, and the Negroes shall descend, the lawful heirs of my body not to be sold away. One plantation, 100 acres bounding myself, my daughter, one Negro woman called, one Negro girl called. I rose with wine. It is my will that one child die, that so losing shall entitle one of my children to forever. I give unto my beloved girl this last day of 1,790.
You mentioned that this was an erasure poem, and it's from The Last Will and Testament of Nan Payne's Enslaver. Can you talk a little bit, what is an erasure poem?
An erasure poem is where you take a pre-existing text and you essentially use like a Sharpie and you block out words and you create a new text out of it. And this one in particular, I traced my genealogy back to one of my oldest ancestors, and then found her enslaver. And the thing about like ancestral records is that the archive doesn't allow a lot of space for really any information about Black people, Black enslaved people, and so I went to the enslavers' records and found my ancestor's name in it and took that will and created this poem to give her kind of an ability to speak from the past.
right 2 exit 42, Northern State Parkway East toward Hauppauge.
Let the citrus absorb and become you.
You know, I'm listening to it and I'm reading it right now at the same time with my version of your collection. And you talked earlier about rhythm and how things feel slower for you writing, but I read this and I see it and it's quite fast. It's very punctuated. Can you tell me about the inspiration in here, what you're trying to say in this piece?
Yeah, I mean, I think that a lot of us, like, in adulthood, we're trying to our past either, right? We live with the remnants of who we've been, and so this poem was like kind of created
in half a mile. Use the right lane to take exit 36S, South Oyster Bay Road South toward Bethpage.
Ends up conjuring like the feeling of starting over and then being pulled backwards.
Is there anything about this piece, to go back to form, that you tried to do, a challenge or an element?
In 1,000 feet, exit right.
Yeah, I think this poem takes different images and kind of combines them.
Exit right 2 exit 36S, South Oyster Bay Road South toward Bethpage.
Separate poems, and then I started to think of
in 700 feet, turn right on South Oyster Bay Road.
And then I created this poem out of it where we have
turn right on South Oyster Bay Road. In 1.8 miles, turn left on Stewart Avenue. Red light camera reported ahead.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to lunch soon. 5 minutes. And I'll get back after lunch.
And the kind of out-of-body experience that is.
You know, it's funny, is that the last time that I moved, actually,
This is a shopping mall here. Bethpage shopping mall. Plainview Center.
I'm sure a lot of listeners can commiserate with that challenge that you're talking about. Who are some of the poets that you have your eye on right now? You're probably going to see a lot of folks when you're there that enjoy your pieces. How does it feel to be in community after you've written these pieces?
I think poetry, especially if it's a communal art form, if you've ever gone to any poetry event, like, it's an experience. It's fun, especially during poetry month. Like, you really get to sit in a space that feels everything in a way that, like, you can't from the page itself. So,
camera reported ahead. In 1,000 feet, turn left. Turn left on Stewart Avenue.
Turn off the live. I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee. Turn off the live and I'll be back later.
Turn right, then turn right on Stewart Avenue.
Turn off the live soon. I'll be back. 1 hour.
Of military aid to Ukraine. It's also ramping up its own defense spending amid growing concern about the threat Russia may pose toward Europe. NPR's Lauren Frere reports from London. On a visit to Poland, UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak touted a $620 million aid package to neighboring Ukraine, which includes long-range missiles and 4 million rounds of ammunition. Amid the war in Ukraine, he said he's also putting the UK defense industry on a, quote, war footing.
We have to recognize that the world is in a more dangerous place than it's been since the end of the Cold War.
Speaking alongside NATO's Secretary General, Sunak pledged to boost UK defense spending to 2.5% of GDP by the end of the decade. That's well above the 2% target set by NATO. It would make Britain the second largest defense spender in NATO after the U.S. Lauren Frere, NPR News, London. This is NPR.
This is WNYC in New York. It's 64 degrees at 2:04. I'm Lance Lucky. Sure. As David Brand reports, the measures come after a WNYC investigation into the practice.
Last year, WNYC found dozens of New York insurance companies routinely ask landlords if they rent to tenants with housing assistance vouchers, like Section 8, and deny them coverage if they do. Property owners, industry experts, and elected officials say it's a form of discrimination. They say the practice also forces landlords to pay higher insurance premiums. driving up total housing costs. Now those questions about tenant characteristics are illegal. The new state budget prohibits insurers from requesting information about renters' source of income and denying coverage based on how much tenants earn
Yeah,
or how they pay
going
rent.
to lunch, going to a meeting. I'll be back in about 1 to 2 hours. Thank you. Turn off the live and I'll be back. About 1 to 2 hours. Thank you, everybody. See you later. God bless the bed page.